Rhett, Paul, congrats on Zombieland Double Tap.
Thank you so much.
It is finally here. I know this one has been in the works for a while.
A labor of love.
At the same time, we were talking about it like hypothetically when the last time you guys were in studio, which was only a year and a half ago, and then it was I think announced shortly after. But it is here, and it is a hell of a good time. I really enjoyed it. I think it is a worthy successor to the original.
Thank you.
Brings a lot of freshness and hilarity to the table. I love the new characters. So let's get into it. I mean, we always hear, I think, those go-to tropes about sequels. It has to be bigger. It has to be badder. There has to be a higher body count. Not your first sequel. You guys obviously did Deadpool 2. But what is your sort of overarching approach when returning to a property? What are the most vital components that you guys need to nail, and how did you approach that on this one?
I think you're trying to find that fine line between new but also faithful, and that's a hard one to hit. Where you don't want to do a retread of what you already did, so you got to be careful to introduce new elements. But you also don't want to lose what made the first one special. You want to please the people who enjoyed the first movie, because generally they have seen it when they come back for the second. So you're just trying to walk that line. And I think some sequels fall on the side of too different, and some fall on the side of, hey, it just feels like the same thing all over again. We were trying to hit the mark, and whether we did or not is really up to audiences.
I mean, what's interesting is 10 years have passed. So there's an audience that may not have was too young to probably have ever seen the first one.
Right.
So it's like, you can't rely too much on that crutch of, hey, we're going to build on the first one. It's because it's brand new to some people. So it's an interesting dynamic of, again, as Rhett said, some of the old and introducing some of the new, some of that familiarity and some of the new stuff.
I got to give you guys props on this movie title. I think it might be one of the most Easter eggy movie titles we've ever gotten. I mean, like hardcore Zombieland fans already know this. This is not breaking news, but I think more casual fans might not actually realize that Double Tap refers to Columbus's #2 rule. This is Zombieland 2. Obviously, that was done very intentionally on your behalf.
I mean, Double Tap, I think, isn't it a Navy SEAL term?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the idea is a second bullet to the head makes sure someone's dead. And you know, there's been a lot of the sequel thing where they try to have fun with the 2 and the 3, and sometimes it goes off the rails a little bit. But we thought Double Tap was just right.
And there's no 2 in the title, which is
Right.
interesting.
This means, though, I mean, not to look ahead too far, but if there is a Zombieland 3, I believe that's going to be called Zombieland Beware of the Bathroom.
Beware of bathroom.
Exactly. That is rule number 3. Which no one's gonna go to that. Who would go to the theater for that?
No.
There's a lot of horror to be found in the bathroom.
Yeah, true.
So
but
I feel like there's some space to explore.
You may not go to the movie. I mean, I guess unless you're just a true horror aficionado and you want to know what awful is going to happen inside that bathroom.
How many rules can you guys name, like, off the cuff?
Boy, what? Cardio. Hold on, let's go through them.
Because I can't. It's too early.
How many are there?
There's
73?
I think it's 73, but that list is, I'm not sure.
Pretty fungible.
I'm not sure there is one for all 73. There's enough that we could fake it.
Yeah.
We did have a list at one point because Sony Marketing made us fill out a list of at least 35 of them. And so we were adding a few and just having some fun. But I don't think it goes as high as 73 in real life. I think that's just
Yeah.
There are 73 total. They're just not all filled in.
Correct.
That's what you're saying.
Correct.
Got it.
So when we do Zombieland 73, we'll have to figure out what that 73 is.
Well, I mean, the rules are going to keep going up at this rate, or they're going to like double with every movie.
As long as Columbus keeps thinking of stuff.
Every 10 years, that's 730 years from now?
Before we dig too much deeper into Double Tap, I want to talk about the sequel that almost was, because I understand you guys were greenlit like right out of the gates. After, Zombieland, the first one, huge sleeper hit in 2009, and from what I understand, Sony wanted a sequel almost immediately, and you guys wrote one. What did that version of the film look like?
There were some pretty big differences. One was that it took place immediately following the first Zombieland, so it started at Pacific Playland. So right away, the crew at Little Rock was still 12 years old. The crew went to spend their time in the Capitol Records building in Los Angeles. They ended up going to Dallas Cowboy Stadium, which is where the Community was.
Okay.
What were some of the other differences? There was a human bad guy, which we decided was a little distracting ultimately from just our core group, so we decided to do away with that.
There was what, a Rolling Stones cameo? Wasn't there
Well,
a Keith
yeah.
Richards cameo?
So the RV.
There was gonna be a Keith Richards cameo.
This is a scoop, yeah, because because no one's heard this story.
No.
The RV scene from the movie where they get the RV.
Yep.
It used to be the Rolling Stones tour bus. And
In the first draft.
In the first draft. And
Okay.
so they went to take over. It was in Los Angeles, outside the Staples Center or whatever, and they saw it and they're like, oh my God, we got to get the Rolling Stones tour bus. So they went in there. And I believe Keith Richards was alive
Was
in
holed
the back,
up.
but they mistook him for a zombie and shot him again. Like that was the beginning.
He was the Bill Murray of
Yeah.
Zombieland too.
Of this version.
He wasn't dressed as a zombie. He was actually just looked like a zombie. He looked like himself. So.
I remember them going
I can
through
see that.
They were going through the cupboards of the RV and finding a lot of drugs. and I remember Columbus said something like, "It's like ye old pharmacy in here," because there was just like the British version of the pharmacy, all those drugs in the cupboards.
Did you ever get to the point where you actually approached Keith Richards about it,
No.
or it was a pipe dream? Basically
Never.
at that
We ended up ultimately it changed because Abigail Breslin grew up. We joke that it's sort of like you start to remodel your house, you think it's going to take 6 months, it ends up taking 10 years, and in that time everything changes, you know.
Right.
But the idea was that Abigail Breslin in real life grew up, so suddenly everything had to change, and a couple of other writers, Dave Callahan and Oren Uziel, came on board and in succession and helped transition it to the White House and further east. And
We just had to account for that time passage in real time, the 10 years that have passed and what has happened both to the world and to our characters in those 10 years.
And Little Rock grew up, right? So now she wants to leave the nest. She's going to meet a boy. They have to go get her. That whole story came later, and then ultimately the finished version's a little bit of an amalgamation of the later drafts and our earlier draft. There's still a community, and there's still a celebration of Christmas, which we had, and so there's still the RV and all that stuff, but a lot of new elements as well. And 10 years later, we had a movie.
What do you guys attribute to the fact that that first draft didn't go, or that first version didn't go? Was it a scheduling thing?
It was mostly schedule. You know, again, we finished it probably 6 months after the first one came out. So this would have been mid 2010. You know, Ruben had gone off.
It's quick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can write fast.
Yeah.
Ruben, what was Ruben's next movie? I can't
30 Minutes
remember.
or
30.
Less.
Ruben
Right.
went off and did 30
Yeah.
minutes or less. Our cast, you know, blew up. Emma and
Yep.
Jesse, and obviously, you know, Woody was.
They all went and got their
continued to
Oscars,
rule the
Oscar
world.
nominations.
And then we went off and did Deadpool, and that took a big chunk of our time. And so we kind of all pushed it to the side and said, at some point maybe we'll return to it. But we, in our hearts, we thought, does this ever happen again? We didn't think so.
Oh, you didn't think so?
We didn't think so as much as we wanted it to, just because again the stars needed to align, literally the stars, you know, and again I think it was that love of the first movie that we all had, that it was the love of one another that we all had of each other, that brought us all back and said, let's go, it's like going to camp, like let's putting on an old comfy sweater, let's do it, and thank goodness we did. So.
And it had to help that the original film has only grown in stature in the years since. I mean, it wasn't an underperformer. It was a sleeper hit, I think. It wasn't an underperformer by any stretch. But I think it also grew on DVD and home video and cable and all of that.
I think it became one of those movies that when it comes on cable late at night and you come in the middle of it, you wait, you watch the whole thing until the end, because it's just that thing. And the Bill Murray scene became sort of legendary, the Bill Murray cameo. So it did pick up steam over time, and that's why I think the studio felt comfortable still making a sequel 10 years after the fact.
They did a study. Sony listed all their movies that they had in their library, and they said which, you know, they did a focus group in which would you like to see a sequel of it. I think Zombieland, even many years after the first one came out, they said Zombieland was the number one. So.
Yeah. And from what I understand, you guys got back to work on what ultimately became this version, or I think Dave Callahan may have started on it about 4 or 5 years ago. How would you say this version evolved from start to finish?
Well, when we came back on, it was probably mostly about infusing the Zombieland voice back into it, just making sure that it really felt like the original characters in the original script and the original movie. But that took another couple of years, believe it or not, of changing things in the script and moving things around, and it changed even quite a bit during that stretch.
The Bill Murray cameo
Yeah,
was
the
a
Bill Murray
Ghostbusters
cameo.
cameo.
Yeah.
Interestingly, it was Dan Aykroyd out on a golf course trying to get Bill Murray to do Ghostbusters 3.
Ah.
And then Dan Aykroyd becomes a zombie, and they have this battle royale out on the golf course. Joe Pesci is out hitting in front of them, and then Ghostbusters 3 came out. Bill Murray was in it. We had to toss that, and that evolved into the Garfield cameo, the Garfield 3 Flabby Tabby cameo.
Why was Joe Pesci there?
He was playing golf in the foursome ahead of Bill Murray
Uh-huh.
and Dan Aykroyd, and he was really slow, so they were getting really angry at him, and they hit into him, and he got mad. It was like this whole thing, and
Hit a little Goodfellas tantrum.
yeah, a little Goodfellas tantrum out on the course. He was really angry, and then of course, all hell breaks loose, and golf carts are rolling into lakes, and people are getting hit over the head with sand trap rakes and things like that. It was fun, but ultimately we just couldn't do it because the Ghostbusters, the real Ghostbusters came out, and Bill was in it, so suddenly that joke didn't work anymore.
Right.
And then we decided that because Bill had teed up this idea of the Garfield movie and how much he hated it in Zombieland 1 and hated doing them, we thought, well, what if he'd done a third, a speculative third Garfield movie that had just been planned to be released before the zombies struck, and that's why we never saw it in theaters. And then he's got to go do a press junket and answer all these stupid questions about it, and so we ran with that.
I think according to IMDb, Dan Aykroyd is in this movie.
Yeah,
that was definitely
Someone
definitely
saw
got
a
out
draft,
there.
yeah.
Someone saw a draft.
That came from a draft.
Yeah.
But was there never an offer out to him, or again,
No,
it
it never got that far.
Never got
And
that
Harold
far.
Ramis was in it too.
Okay.
And Ernie Hudson was. They were all golfing, I think. It was a foursome, and they were all trying to convince Bill. He was the one who refused to do the third Ghostbusters, and they all wanted to do it to further their bank accounts and their careers, and yet he was the one resisting, and that was the joke.
Yeah, I mean the original Bill Murray cameo, I think, arguably the greatest movie cameo of all time. I mean, you just had to bring him back, right?
Had to. It's like, how do you top a Bill Murray cameo with a Bill Murray cameo?
Right.
Yeah, there was no way to top Bill. But then we ran into the issue of, well, he can't be, he's dead. So we had to do a prequel version. We had to back up, and we thought, why not back up to the first day the zombies attack? Because that's always an entertaining moment, and just figure out where he was when that happened.
If there ever is a third one, we'll have to make him a zombie.
I guess.
You have to. Yeah, and I can see where you guys landed at a press junket. You're like, what is like a place that's just filled with horror? a movie's press junket. It's so well played. Did Bill have any insight? Did you guys ask him for feedback on that at all in terms of what he would do with it?
Well, he just runs with it. You give him the framework, you give him some lines, and then he becomes Bill Murray. That tally light comes on the camera, and he fires up and just brings the magic. So
yeah. Garfield Flabby Tabby
Flabby
is where you
Tabby.
guys netted out, which is brilliant. Were there other titles that you guys workshopped?
I don't think so. We definitely ran a lot more questions by him. Like, we had a whole runner written where he had acted alongside Ben Kingsley in the movie, Sir Ben Kingsley, who played the evil dog catcher.
Of course.
And so we had the reporters ask him questions about Ben Kingsley, and every time he answered, we made the answer a little worse. Like, so he started out saying, yeah, he's really professional, and then as the junket wore on, he started saying really mean things about Ben Kingsley and how awful he was to work with. And it was really funny, but the joke kind of went on and on and on.
Yeah.
So they decided it had to.
And
be
they
cut.
ran it by Ben Kingsley, and he was like, "I'm totally
in."
game."
He
Like,
was.
Yeah,
So-
he's like, that's so funny. Like, he never appeared, but just the idea of like
that we were besmirching his name.
He was making Ben Kingsley out to be a monster. Like, and hopefully that stuff will make the DVD because it's really funny.
That's surprising because I've tried to do a bit with Sir Ben Kingsley before, and it went badly.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Oh yeah. He was promoting this movie Box Trolls.
Yeah.
And I asked him about the movie, and then I tried to do this bit like the perks of being a sir, and I was like, what are the perks of being a sir? And he gave a very earnest answer, and then I said, what are the cons? He said, oh no, there are no cons. It's all about serving Her Majesty. And I said, I was like, I feel like you have I feel like you have Her Majesty on speed dial, don't you? You know, I said something like that. I was just going places
Yes,
he did
just
not want me
having
to
fun.
go,
Yeah.
and it was like he was a robot and somebody hit the off switch.
Really?
He just shut down
Oh.
and glared at me,
Oh my
Oh.
goodness.
and I was like,
Okay, moving on.
back to box trolls. I apologized to him afterwards. I thought I had seen him joke around before about his
guess-
knighthood, and I swear I'd seen it somewhere. And I went and I looked it up. And he was on Kimmel, and they were joking around
Right.
about it. And Kimmel said to him, no joke. He said, like, has anyone, does anyone taken it too far when they're asking you about a knight, being a knight and this and that? And he goes, oh yeah, once. And Kimmel said, oh, what'd you do? And he said, I gave him that look. I was like, oh my God, I got the look. I got the look. I was number two because
you were number
this
two.
had happened
He'd
in
already
the
done
this-
that.
He'd already
You
done.
got the second
I got the
look.
second look. Yeah.
Gosh.
So, but I'm glad to hear he was
Oh,
game
he was
for that.
game, yeah.
Yeah.
Ruben has talked about these movies in the sense that they're basically, I think the comparison he's made is like it's like a National Lampoon's Vacation with zombies. It's really about it's about this family first, and,
Yep.
and obviously it's a comedy first, but you can't forget about zombies. So when you approach especially a sequel. How imperative is that you sort of keep that top of the mind, that you have to serve people, the meat and the potatoes, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think more than anything, we always say it's ordinary problems in extraordinary circumstances, right? You've got this family dynamic, and you've got the empty nest with Tallahassee and Little Rock and Columbus and Wichita and their relationship. It's like it's family dynamics that everyone goes through, ordinary issues, and then you've got the extraordinary element of zombies, like that. Anytime you turn the corner, you could die. Like that's the threat. So we always want to keep the stakes high in that sense of it's life or death, but the personal stakes are relatively low, right? It's about keeping this family together, and it feels like it's something that our audience can relate to. So
Yeah. The first Zombieland came out in 2009. I think the landscape in the genre has changed since then. I mean, this was a year before The Walking Dead aired. And I think together these projects were both sort of part of the latest zombie revival, because I think we've had a few zombie revivals. I remember they revived in 2002 with Danny Boyle, 28 days later, the super quick.
Which was a huge inspiration to Zombieland, actually,
Yeah.
28 days later.
Brilliant movie. But how mindful do you guys have to be approaching this in 2009 that it's a different playing field? People have had not only The Walking Dead, Fear of the Walking Dead, other zombie movies come out. It's a much more saturated, I think, genre than it was in 2009. How mindful do you have to be of that?
We just wanted to make sure that the zombies had evolved a little bit, that there was at least something new we were saying about the zombies, and we thought the 10-year gap gave us that evolution, or that time for the zombies to evolve. And we like the idea of different zombies that, depending on their situations and their environments and their circumstances, that they were maybe tougher, or maybe smarter, or maybe dumber, or depending on where they were when the apocalypse struck. And I think once we covered that, we really then just stopped worrying about the zombies and just worried about the people. And we did, of course, Ruben was careful to make sure that the world looked like it had evolved for 10 years. So the White House is really overgrown, and things, and Graceland is burned to the ground, things like that. But in the grand scheme, it was mostly just making sure that the relationships made sense after the passage of time.
It's interesting. Robert Kirkman, the creator of Walking Dead, I saw him at a Deadpool screening many years ago, and he came up to me and he credited Zombieland for The Walking Dead making it on TV, and that AMC taking that risk of moving forward on his project, because before Zombieland there really hadn't been. There were a lot of great zombie movies, but there hadn't been that commercial success that Zombieland was fortunate enough to experience, and I think that gave AMC the courage to move forward on a TV show about zombies.
This film does get a little sly little dig in at The Walking Dead, though. At least they get the graphic novel version.
Yeah, we got a little meta there. We always try and weave some meta into our movies. Deadpool is obviously super meta.
Right.
It's, fourth wall, but we weaved a little into that. And Emma actually had a really fun.
Yeah, she wanted to actually run in. She wanted them to run into the Walking Dead, or some of not the zombies, but some of the characters.
the
So
cast.
just see them and have an interaction, and then move on.
And not even
Or not even
an
interact.
interaction.
Just sort of see them.
Just see them drive by, and we're like, oh my God, how great would that be? But I don't think it ever came together schedule wise.
Oh, these universes almost collided.
Yeah.
What you're saying.
Yeah.
Wow. It was said it was an Emma Stone brainstorm.
Yeah.
That is amazing. There is a great sequence at the White House where they've taken up very cozy residence in the first act of the film. Some great sort of like historical artifacts that they play around with. There's I think a gun that Nixon gave Elvis. There's a first edition Tolkien. There's a ring. Is that Jackie Kennedy's ring?
It was the Hope Diamond.
I think was it, or was it just?
No, I think
it was the Hope Diamond.
I mean,
the
it wasn't
idea
actually the Hope Diamond. It was
Did we
a
get
prop.
that on loan?
Yeah.
Did we call Ben Kingsley and he got in touch with Her Majesty and we got the Hope Diamond?
Yeah. Did you guys actually research what's in the White House, or was that just all completely made up?
Well, I think Ruben had this idea of wanting to bring in all these historical artifacts. So some of it came from the Smithsonian. They had, there was
The Library of Congress is there. That's where we thought that the Tolkien had come from. Things like that, but it just had to make sense. We love the idea of Tallahassee using the portraits on the walls to make wrapping paper for the Christmas gifts. I thought that was funny. Like
wrapping paper.
Just use whatever's around.
Do you know in one of the shots, do you see the Taft picture?
Yeah,
There's
and it's cut out. Yeah,
which I love.
Nice.
Little details.
I talked to Ruben about this too. I love the fact that there's a Sorkin walk and talk.
Yeah, I know.
This.
And it sort of works. I don't think that many people realize that's what we were doing, but it was very intentional in the script. It's like, well, let's do the Sorkin walk and talk, walking fast through the halls all around, and in a oneer, and they did it. I mean, I don't know if that many people go, oh, West Wing, but that was the intent.
Anyone over 40 might.
Yeah, right.
But no one before.
I just turned 40, so that checks
out.
out.
There you go. Yeah. No wonder you noticed.
There's always been subtext to the zombie genre. I mean, all the way back to the first Night of the Living Dead. I think people looked at that as like an allegory on conformity. What do zombies mean in 2019? Is it commentary on how we've all become cell phone zombies? Is it the same as it was back then? Am I overthinking this and it's just a comedy? What do you guys think?
I mean, we've always treated the apocalypse as wish fulfillment and sort of an escapist fantasy, the post-apocalyptic landscape. Mm-hmm. The zombies themselves, I always feel, are just a metaphor for our fears, and it's a metaphor for our fears and the things that make us angry and the things that freak us out. And it's just kind of a vicarious ability to take a crowbar and attack those fears physically and beat them down. Like, that's kind of what I've always felt. So I'm not sure that's changed with time. You never know when your movie's going to come out. Like, we were trying to get this thing made 10 years ago. It took 10 years, so it's come out at a specific time, and people might read into that and say, oh, they were trying to make this commentary or that commentary. But really, I think it's just about that overall feeling of fighting your fears.
And the great thing is that time has stopped 2009, right? Because the apocalypse hit, and now it's like, so there are no cars post 2009. There are no
television shows or
so we
movies.
can't make any pop cultural references, any music, nothing. Time has stopped in 2009, and Ruben was like pretty resolute about no more, you'll never hear a track of music post 2009 in the movie, which I think is super cool.
Yeah. The hypothetical forecasting is pretty great too. When Zoe comes up with the idea, the most dim-witted character comes up with the idea for Lift is pretty impeccable. I must say.
We really enjoyed doing that scene.
I must say.
Yeah, because she nails it, and everybody else
so good.
is so skeptical.
Good. She's so good at this.
So good.
She's so good.
The best.
Yeah. By the way, Woody's answer to that question was they represent Congress, the zombies. By the way, I think I don't want to say successfully, but I attempted to get the Woody for President campaign going at that junket. And I got a lot of support.
I like it. Why not?
I heard his platforms.
You're welcome, America.
You're welcome, America. Yeah, I mean, there was just something about that scene of seeing Woody in the Oval Office with his feet kicked up on the president's desk. It just felt right. It just felt right. I know he's playing the well, he's playing a presidential candidate on SNL these days. And I was like, no, I want
Real Woody.
real Woody.
Real
I
Woody.
want,
Believe me, we'd be a lot better off.
yeah, and weed would be legalized in all 50 states.
Yeah,
you know?
100%.
Well, one surprising thing about Double Tap, and I'm not saying it's a political movie, but I think for a mainstream Hollywood movie, this kind of jumps out that it has some serious love for the hillbilly, for sort of the red state. I mean, a common theme is sort of there are jokes made at the expense of these pacifists. They're all gun-toting, obvious for
Right.
obvious reasons. But Woody's character especially really leans into the hillbilly nature.
Thank God for rednecks.
There's actually a line where he says, "Thank God for rednecks."
That's a callback to the first movie,
Yep.
and that was an ad lib of Woody's in the first movie when he finds all the guns in the back of the
shooting
Hummer.
them off, yeah.
Yeah.
But I say it's surprising because this is Hollywood and this is
You usually
liberal
don't get
Hollywood, and we
that.
don't see this. Are you guys? Was that intentional on your behalf? Are you saying we want to make a movie that that speaks more to the red state areas, to the
It
South
wasn't
and
entirely
Midwest?
intentional, but Tallahassee's always been that guy, right? He always had Dale Earnhardt's number 3 on the side of his car. Like, he's a NASCAR fan. He's from the South. If you
Drinks
consider
Budweiser.
Florida the South, yes, and drives a truck and such. So I think he always spoke for that side of America, and Columbus is more the blue state guy, right? And so that was originally why they were such fun foils, I think. I mean, they don't talk about politics, but you definitely get the sense that they're kind of butting heads over some of those same issues. So
Yeah.
so maybe it wasn't overt, but it's just
Yeah.
lurking.
Was it an attempt to troll liberal Hollywood?
No.
Not a conscious attempt.
No.
I love the doppelgangers that we see, Luke Wilson and Jesse Eisenberg, not Jesse Eisenberg, Thomas Middleditch, two great cameos. I have to ask this: did you guys ever consider Michael Cera for Jesse Eisenberg's doppelganger?
It was, that's who they went to first.
Yeah.
And just because so often over the years, people had mistaken Michael for Jesse and vice versa. So they did go to him first, and he passed, interestingly.
As he did on the first movie.
Yeah.
He was originally offered the role of Jesse long before.
Interesting.
When we were in the early stages of casting, and this, he had been hot off of what, Superbad and
Something
and,
like, Arrested Development, I think.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, so he's passed on the zombie franchise twice. But I mean,
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness, Jesse Eisenberg and Thomas Middleditch, and seeing those two together and the way they improvise, like, that is one of the great scenes.
It really is. Yeah, Middleditch brings it.
It's so
It is
fun.
it is Bizarro World done right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Are there any like Easter eggs that you guys can tease or reveal that people should look out for that you're especially proud of?
Flagstaff and Albuquerque, our two doppelgangers, were actually the original names of Tallahassee and Columbus in
the very first Zombieland script. And the reason it changed was because the movie was supposed to take place in the Arizona desert, in the Sonoran Desert with all the saguaros and stuff. And we ended up having to shoot in Atlanta. So
the geography changed.
So we thought we have to move the entire movie to the east. So it took place in Texas instead, which then necessitated a change in Tallahassee, from a change in the direction they were moving around. So Albuquerque became Tallahassee, Flagstaff became Columbus. And so when it came time to do the doppelgangers, we thought, well, we have to give them the original names. Like that's a nod to the very first Zombieland script, which was written in 2005, believe it or not. It was a long, long time.
There's also there's a Twinkie...
Twinkie the Kid on the front of the Beast.
On the front of the Beast.
I don't know if you noticed that.
that
The
was-
Beast is the big limo that the president uses to get around, and on the grill, the front grill, there was a Twinkie the Kid.
What other? I'm trying to think of little other Easter eggs we had in there.
Well, there's some callbacks. I don't know if you call those Easter eggs. Like, he's going to say goodbye, and Columbus says, "Not the pig thing again."
Right.
Like there are some callbacks, but. I don't know. Look, we ourselves should do the deep dive because we haven't watched the movie frame by frame, and the production design team.
They get into that.
They get into that kind of stuff. You know, dropping in little hints.
Yeah, and Woody, Tallahassee's called out for one of his catchphrases, which is "nut up or shut up," which I think speaks to changing times. I think that felt like a little bit of a commentary. We're obviously as a culture having this dialogue right now
Right.
about what we can still
The problem
say in
is he
comedy.
changes it
Put
to
up
let's
yeah,
kick
let's
some
kick some
dicks.
dicks, which is not
Which
any
is-
better, maybe worse.
No,
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, but how mindful are you guys of that that dialogue that's sort of going on in our culture right now? When I think people can agree that it's tougher for comedians right now. It's tougher for comedy writers to know what we can still joke about, and how much are there things that in the writing process you're throwing out because you're like, well, this people could respond to this badly, or do you just put it out there and hope for the best?
Well, we've had a lot of experience with both Deadpool and Zombieland. You're just trying to find that fine line between being irreverent and silly and equal
Not being
opportunity
offensive.
offenders, but not punching down and not taking shots at the wrong things. And we just try to ride that line. I'm sure we've stepped over it, or I'm sure future generations will look back at this movie and go, "Oh, those guys, they were awful," as culture evolves.
Right.
But
The way we're reassessing like every
yeah,
movie from the
yes,
70s,
exactly.
80s,
I
and 90s
think it's
right now.
difficult to apply today's standards to
Well,
previous
Blazing
generations.
Saddles. Go back and watch
Right.
Blazing Saddles.
It's
Sure.
It's like,
It's
whoa.
intense, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still hilarious, and so it's. I think you
But
have
it
to
was of
place
a
a movie
time,
in
yeah.
its context
Yeah.
and not necessarily condemn people who came from generations before because they were ignorant of things that came later. Like that was just their time,
Right.
and we're in that time, and will be looked back upon unfavorably probably, and then those people who are looking back will then be looked upon unfavorably later. So
Yep.
it's ongoing.
We're always going to be shitting on our ancestors, basically.
Yes, basically. They were monsters.
Yeah.
They were cavemen. Oh, literally in cavemen.
Well, we talked about how fast part 2 was initially greenlit. Say this film does well. I think it's tracking pretty well. How are you guys feeling about doing another one? Do you see this as a potential trilogy?
We would love to. Again, we would love to return to the world. Woody told me the other day that he would make 10 of these if he could.
Right.
They can't take 10 years each because it'd be about 160. So, but
Woody takes care of himself.
Oh, man,
he
you're
might
right.
live to 160.
you're right. If there is a God,
Yeah.
it's Woody. Again, we would love nothing more. This one's near and dear to us. It was the first thing that we collaborated on the feature side. How we wrote it in 2005. So that's almost 15 years ago, and it feels like something that we could do for a long time if given the opportunity.
But for the record, as of now, it will not be called Beware of the Bathroom.
No.
I don't
No.
think it ever will. I'm very sorry, Kevin. It's,
Kind of disappointed by
I
that.
know. It's just, who knows though?
Yeah. Anything can happen in this,
Yeah,
in this
anything.
business.
Yeah.
You guys already have another movie coming out like next month. Clearly, you do not sleep or
Six
or
Underground
take
is coming
vacations.
out next month on Netflix, December rather.
December 13th on Netflix.
Netflix.
We wrote that, interestingly, at nights while we were on set of Deadpool 2.
Yeah,
Wow.
we were.
So yes, we don't sleep.
It's a much more recent project, but yeah, it's a lot of mayhem. It's going to be really exciting.
A lot of
It's
mayhem.
crazy, yeah.
Directed by Michael Bay.
Bananas.
Bananas.
We know the explosions are going to be awesome.
Yes, they are.
We know Ryan Reynolds is in it.
Yep.
He's awesome.
Is it a secret Deadpool movie? Like
Oh,
Life was a secret Venom movie. I think,
That
right?
was
Yeah.
always the right.
Yeah.
No, it's not a secret Deadpool movie, but Ryan brings all of his humor and charm. He's great. Yeah, we're excited, and and then we're hoping to do another one with Ryan, Clue, which is in the works.
Okay.
Yeah, Clue is a reboot of the original Clue from the mid '80s with Ryan Reynolds and Jason Bateman directing, at least as of this moment, and so
We're turning in a second draft
yeah,
today.
Oh,
in fact, yeah.
congrats.
They're wondering where it is, and it's not in their hands because we're sitting here with you.
I'm sorry about that. Clearly, you guys don't mind working with Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, we love it. He's our muse.
Yeah.
He's our muse. And
He's brilliant.
so wonderful, and he elevates everything, and he's generous and kind, and we'll make every movie we can with Ryan.
I'm required to ask what the status of Deadpool 3 is. Is that sort of Is it in a holding pattern as sort of Disney and Fox get their ducks in the row after the merger?
It still is. You know, we've sat with Kevin Feige before the merger, and we're not allowed to talk to him about it. I think Ryan's sat down with him more recently, but it's still in the works. We're trying to figure it out. They're trying to figure it out, and then hopefully we can come through with something.
I think
cool.
the promise is that Deadpool will live in his R-rated universe that he was living in at Fox, and then over time, hopefully we can play with some of those MCU toys in the sandbox and bring that into his world and have him brought into their world. And so we'll see. It's a fun, exciting time, and we again, that's another one that's near and dear to us.
So Once Upon a Time in Deadpool, that wasn't like a sample of like what a Deadpool PG-13 movie would look like in the
Well,
MCU.
it certainly was. I mean, that was a PG-13 Deadpool, and I thought it worked well. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's as good as the R-rated version in the sense that it's missing a little edge, but it worked better than any one of us would have anticipated. I think.
Yeah.
And then Fred Savage brought a ton to it. He was so
Yeah.
great. Oh my gosh, he and Ryan, they were so good together. So no, we're. I mean, look, it should be R. I think at the end of the day, that's really Deadpool's DNA more than any other, and it's I think one of the highest grossing, if not the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time.
Yeah.
It's right up there. Both movies are up there. So, and I think Bob Iger is committed to the idea of it still being R. So that's the hope. Yeah.
And you also know Bob Iger and Kevin Feige are both smart enough to know that fans would revolt.
Probably
if,
would.
If it were not an R-rated
Probably
movie.
would. There'd be some 11-year-olds going, yes! It's like, but everybody else would be angry.
Yeah. What kind of conversations have you had with Ryan about it?
Just real preliminary.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all just been in the wait and see until this Disney Fox thing shakes out.
I did wake up in the middle of the night about 2 months ago. I had my phone by my bedside, and I thought I had cracked it. I was like, oh my God, yes. I texted Ryan and Rhett, and went to sleep going, oh, thank God we have it. We've solved it. I woke up the next morning to no response from either you or Ryan, and then reread the text and thought, oh boy, nope.
I wish I could delete.
Did not solve it and will not sleep with the phone by my bedside.
I think that's amazing because that's a thing that happens, I think, to all of us.
Yeah.
You have that middle of the night idea that you think is so genius. You write it down, you look at it the next day.
Not genius.
Not so much.
I've written emails in the middle of the night that are literally just letters.
Yeah.
Letters. Just XZ,
Straight
7.
gibberish.
Thinking, oh my God, and then wake up and go, oh my
I think
God.
you were just like one key over. Like you were
Was
writing
I?
a great
so I
email.
should
You just
check
needed
that.
to shift
It's
your,
like
your
a
hands.
code.
Yeah.
You should
Maybe
go back.
maybe
you cracked it.
Maybe I did crack it.
Yes. But clearly you guys are in the phase of trying to crack, it sounds like, right now.
It's front and center on our minds. It always is.
Yeah.
And so yes, we're always thinking.
And Ryan is teasing us. I mean, he posted a photo of
He
himself
did post-
at Marvel,
yeah,
so
we
the
saw
announcement
it.
does
We were
feel
not
imminent.
there
I'm
that
just going
day.
to say.
We were not there that day, so we can't speak to what happened that day. But look, we trust Kevin Feige more than anybody to solve everything. I mean, look, that MCU is absolutely peerless.
Brilliant.
I mean, it's like 20-some movies now, and they're all good. Like it's just that never happens. So they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Are there any characters or plot lines in that MCU that you guys are salivating over?
I mean, the only
involving?
thing that I no specifics except to say that the MCU has much better villains than the Deadpool universe at Fox did. Like our villains were always, it was a very sparse list. We were always like, oh,
Yeah.
we were having to coax the best out of.
I remember
villains.
these conversations. Yeah.
Yeah, but
ones that
and
you
the
did
MCU
not go near.
The MCU has awesome villains, so we're just excited to be able to play with.
Yeah.
And awesome playmates too.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
I mean,
trying
it bums me out. I always wanted to see Chris Evans as Captain America opposite Deadpool, just because I thought that'd be the perfect foil, and that will not happen now. But there's plenty of others. It'd be
Spider-Man.
awesome. Yeah, Spider-Man would be cool.
Yep.
And,
Again, a possibility now.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
possibility
Thankfully.
now.
Yeah, I was trying to think who's like the most foul-mouthed MCU character. Probably Tony. It was probably Tony.
Yeah.
But you almost want to play it the opposite, where he's with the square,
Right,
So
that's
he has
true.
someone to play off of.
And that is probably Peter Parker.
It might be.
Yeah,
It's pretty
yeah.
by the book.
Yeah, so I think we've just landed on the plot.
Hold on, let me text.
Yeah. One key over, so he doesn't.
Guys, it's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you
really
so
appreciate
much.
all the
Terrific.
insight.
Thank you.
We really
Congrats
appreciate
again.
us having us on.
Thanks, guys.